It's that time of year again. The nominations are out for the PwC All-Star Awards. So what better time to jump in and pick your very own All-Stars team? You can choose your own team on the brilliant PwC All-Stars app. Today, we're going to try and go through the hurling team of the year with the help of some very special guests. Tipperary's Brendan Cummins, Clare's Brendan Bugler, and Kilkenny's Richie Power. Lads, thanks very much for joining us. 1st of November this year, the All-Star Awards. It's still like, it's such a really big night. It's funny, I always think of the GAA as like, it's such a team game and so modest, like modesty is such a virtue almost, Brendan, that like, do you think players almost allow themselves to enjoy this individual accolade enough? You did it 5 times. You know, I'm sure if I interviewed you after every one of them, you'd be like, look, it was about the lads in the pitch. But looking back now, it must mean something to be honoured.
It does. I mean, it's, yeah, like you say, you soldier with guys all year, and then it's that individual thing to recognise the work that you've done. And certainly the times that I'd have gotten All-Stars and I didn't know until the night, and I genuinely didn't know, when your name is called out, there is that rush of adrenaline to say, yeah, I've got there. Do you know what I mean? And when you sit up there on the stage and look down, it really is, you know, it's special. Because growing up, you'd have seen, for me, it was to know the little pen pictures of the players and the little photographs they had on the posters. You'd see them on all the walls in the clubs and all. And to be on the wall and know you've gotten a mug on like that for history is nice. And then, of course, 2 days later, you're saying to yourself, well, I need to get back to the grindstone now because I have targets for next year. But yeah, there is a certain intake and exhale a breath going, yeah, this is nice, you know. And then you're wondering where's the trip as well, of course, which is always the next question. All right, lads, where are we going? How far is the plane going? And all that kind of stuff. So there's that camaraderie piece. I was lucky I got on 4 All-Star trips, and whatever about the night itself, getting away with lads is just a fantastic 5 or 6 day break, whether it's Buenos Aires or San Francisco, you know what I mean? Yeah. Join the GA and see the world, you know what I mean? I'm
just wondering, from a goalkeeper's point of view, we'll talk about this year's goalkeepers in a few minutes. It's like you, to win 5 in an era of like Damien Fitzhenry, Davy Fitz, Donal Ogue, you know, and it's because it's just like this individual position, there's only one a year, you know, it's kind of like you don't get to really face those guys on the pitch or the other end of the field from them. Is that kind of like a personal accolade, a personal win over those guys that you're competing with?
Well, I think competing with is probably the right way of putting it. You say it wasn't directly in competition, but if it's Henry, who for me was the benchmark all through my playing career, any night I trained, I was thinking Dame Fitzhenry is probably training harder this, I need to do more, I need to do more. And if he was down the other end of the pitch to me, bringing off saves, I just thought you have to up your game here, he's outshining you, you just need to do something. Do you know what I mean? And that was kind of always where the bar was at for me, was Damien. So yeah, we would look at each other. Donal Logue wrecked my head for a few years because lads were saying to me, you should be going shot with the puck out. And I said, I'd much rather play a game of puck fodder here, lads, if you don't mind. And so they made me change my game. So other players and other goalies having a different style to you, you have to adapt and change to have a little bit of what they're doing. Stick to your own values, but I think it did change goalkeeping and revolutionise it because we were all looking at each other, taking little bits of what each other was doing and putting our own style to it. So it does give you that edge. And I think this year, looking at the All-Star selection, we'll chat in a while, goalkeeping is coming back into a real healthy space now again.
For sure. Richie, you grew up in a house where All-Stars were the norm, I suppose. You know, your dad won 2, you won 2 as well, arguably could have had 1 or 2 more. Does that, I don't know, to kind of replicate what your father did, you know, that must make it even kind of more special to sort of like to, you know, for even for him, more even so than yourself, to kind of, for you to replicate what he did.
No, look, absolutely. You know, I suppose I remember 2011 when I got my second, you know, I kind of had a small little grin to myself saying that I was equal with Dad at that stage. So we had a bit of a laugh about it afterwards. But yeah, no, look, as Brendan said, it's a huge accolade to receive at the end of a long year, you know. And but I suppose on the other side of it as well, it's one thing I always kind of said, like, was that, you know, whoever accepts the awards the 1st of November, I'm sure they'd all love to be in Tipperary's shoes, you know, with an All-Ireland medal at the end of the day. So, look, individual awards are great, but, you know, what matters most is walking up the steps of the Hogan stand, and, you know, Tipperary deserved that this year. And but obviously, look, there's a wide spread of nominees, and, you know, as we'll discuss later on, and, you know, I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 shocks on the night as well.
Definitely, yeah. And Bugs, before we like move on to this year, I find it an interesting, say your 2 All-Stars, one of them comes after an All-Ireland, and it's kind of, you know, you win it with a load of other Clare lads, and there's a kind of a togetherness and a camaraderie. And how many did we get that we're going to talk about with kind of like Tip and Kilkenny? this year, and then in the year before you win it as kind of the only Clare man. And there are counties in here. There's Laois. You know, we'll be looking at a couple of others who getting that All-Star is a big deal, and it's a big deal for the county. And I remember you, I think you were the first Clare one since Tony Griffin maybe in '06. Yeah. I could be wrong about that. But, you know, that's a big deal for a county, and that's a sign that you're getting recognised and people are actually seeing the work that's going in, both for you individually and for the team.
Yeah, I suppose, and back in 2012 it was a little bit of a surprise, being honest with you, considering we hadn't got to the quarter final, but I'll take it anyway, I'll tell you that. But yeah, look, at the time it meant an awful lot, I suppose, to my club in particular, considering we're such a small club in East Clare. And at the time, I suppose I didn't really, you know, celebrate it all that much. It was like you were just saying there, you're thinking automatically, you're thinking to next year and trying to get up there again, basically. So it's more now, you know, since I've retired, that you kind of look back and you think, Jesus, yeah, like you were in the top 15 hurlers in Ireland this year, which is an extraordinary achievement when you think about it. So it's really something to look back with pride.
Definitely, yeah. Well, let's talk about the 2019, the PwC All-Star Awards will be on Friday, November the 1st. We've got 11 Tipperary players nominated out of the 45. We've 9 Kilkenny, 8 Wexford, 7 Limerick, 2 from Laois, which I think is brilliant and we should talk about, 2 from Cork, 2 from Dublin, 2 from Galway, none from Clare, Brendan, but, you know, it's back next year.
I suppose you have to get out of the province first and foremost and see after that. Unfortunately for us, we didn't this year.
Definitely, yeah. So goalkeeper we'll start with then, lads. You have to pick one from 3 here. We've Owen Murphy from Kilkenny, Brian Hogan from Tip. Both of those we would have expected. And I think one that we were all kind of happy to see was Enda Rowland from Tip, Brendan.
And Rowan, Laois, yeah. Look, and I think Enda's got a great shout at this. After the All-Ireland final, I suppose then when Owen Murphy's the name that rolls off your lips all the time, you talk about the great goalkeepers of the last 2 or 3 years. But looking at it, I saw Enda Rowland playing the flesh 4 times this year. I saw Owen Murphy playing 5 times this year. And when I sat back a couple of weeks after the Ireland final, I took the emotion and the thoughts, the perceptions I had about how good Owen Murphy is. I said to myself, well, maybe Owen or Enda Rowland this year had slightly a better year. Like I've seen him like stop penalties. He scores points for Laois, so blow for blow, he's the same as Owen Murphy there. And I think if he's on most other inter-county panels, he plays like, you know, and he would be well capable of playing that All-Ireland final this year for Kilkenny. Before it would have been a nod, and like you started your question with, it's nice to see. But he absolutely deserves to be in there. And for me, I'd be very close to saying Enda Rowland could be the All-Star goalkeeper this year. And not just because it's a nice thing for a Laois guy to get an All-Star, but because he has taken his game to such a high level. Laois would not have won the Joe McDonald. They would not have beaten Antrim. I saw him playing Antrim in Port Laois. He saved the penalty. They won the match by 6-7 points. But I mean, in the first 20 minutes of that game, Antrim had 4 goal scoring chances. He stopped 3 of them, and the other one was Blaze White. Now, if any of them went in, Antrim were on with their tails up because they'd beaten Kerry in the first round and they were carrying momentum. So, you know, he for me is very, very close now.
And his distribution, you know, if you're talking about a goalkeeper, it's almost 2-pronged now. You have to be able to stop the goals going in. You have to be able to set up the scores on the other end almost with the puck outs and everything like that. But he's got all that as part of his game as well. And he can even score a couple.
He can. And I mean, the other side too is if you look at the forward, he's centre forward Mark Kavanagh, you know, had a fantastic year. A lot of those are based on assists from Enda Rowland and the way they play the game. Eddie Brennan had a very specific game plan. You can't have a game plan unless your goalie can ping the ball to 2 foot square or where the ball needs to go. And he does that more often than not. You know, so all those things combined together do make him the complete package. And the way the year went this year, like other years, Laois wouldn't have gotten as far as they did, and no one even know Enda Rowland exists. Yeah. But he did this year, Laois did, and he certainly made the most of his opportunity, especially in Croke Park as well, brought off a number of fantastic saves. And Tip didn't score 10 goals like everyone thought they would in Croke Park either. So his organisational skills, watching him on the day as well, was exceptionally good. So I tell you, he's thereabouts in my head.
Would you go along with that, lads?
Yeah, no, look, absolutely everything Brendan said is true, but I suppose if we're going on history and going on, I suppose, the last few years, the All-Stars are predominantly picked on semi-final and final, you know, and we've seen that in the last couple of years, and hence why there was a couple of shocks, people will say. With that regard, absolutely, if you go back over the course of the year, Enda Rowland had a fantastic year. But in my eyes, it's going to come down between Owen and Brian. Not because they ended up in the All-Ireland final. You know, we're probably overlooking Brian here a bit. You know, he's after kind of coming in, it's his second year, I think, Brendan, on the team.
Yeah,
Is it second year?
yeah.
You know, he didn't do much wrong over the course of the year. Okay, there was maybe 1 or 2 goals in the semi-final against Wexford he could have stopped. But he had a very, very good All-Ireland final. He was very, very calm, very composed. You know, under the high ball, he's very, very good. You know, yeah. Do you know, like I think Brian Hogan could. You know, I think he could get it. You know, everyone is talking about Owen. Absolutely. You know, Owen has showed over the last couple of years his credentials as a goalkeeper. He's probably after taking it to the next level. You know, on from when Brendan was there and the likes. But I don't know. Maybe winning it might tip it in Brian's favour. I don't know.
It's an interesting discussion because, you know, you could say that Owen Murphy's the best goalkeeper in Ireland without saying that he had the best 2019, you know, and I think that's probably a fair point. I don't know what you think, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Brendan a small little bit, and just like Richie is saying there, Owen, he will go down as one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, like the man beside me here. But you know, when I was weighing up the two of them this year, Owen didn't play every single championship game this year as well, because, you know, he was injured in the early rounds, you know, and within that, really you're only going on, you know, the game against Dublin and the quarter-final against Tipperary, really, you know, when it comes to picking the All-Stars. For me, I'm leaning towards Inda. You know, I just think that Laois were the fairy tale story of this year's championship, being honest with you. And I didn't see him 4 times in the flesh like Brendan, but, you know, anytime I did watch him, you know, against Dublin and against Laois, particularly against Dublin, I thought he was absolutely incredible. He was brilliant, and I just think this year Owen, as good and all as a keeper that he is, he wasn't at the same pitch as he was in previous years. Yeah. And I suppose for that reason, I think that I'd go with Inda.
Right. Okay. Well, 2 votes then. I suppose we'll put Enda Rowland in our panel All-Star team for this one. On to defenders now. We've 18 defenders, and the rules do say that you can pick 6 in any position. We don't necessarily have to worry about exactly where they go. We will go by 2 to 7 though when we're talking about it. Richie, I don't know for yourself, or maybe I should start with the defender in the group actually, Brendan. Who are the players that kind of jump out for you there that we mightn't be talking about?
Yeah, I suppose the cornerbacks to me more or less picked themselves. You know, I think Cathal Barrett had a wonderful year. You know, last year he was played, I think, out of position, you know, played midfield for a lot of the championship. I think this year, you know, Liam decided to put him back cornerback. I thought he was terrific. And in the other corner, I think Sean Finn has brought his game as well to a new level. And even during the league, when Mikey Casey was out, he slotted into full-back seamlessly, and he had a great league at full-back. Against Clare in the championship, Sean Finn, cornerback, was absolutely incredible. I just think he had a very, very consistent year. So for me, the 2 cornerbacks kind of picked themselves. The question is, over the full-back spot, you know, you've Ronan Maher that was there, but he was only in there the last 2 games, Ireland semi-final and Ireland final. You two Lawler, who I think had an absolute terrific year.
Sure, yeah.
Ronan Maher has to get an All-Star in my eyes. The question is, where do we put him? Do you put him full-back or do you put him back out in the half-back line? My own preference probably would be, to go with him full-back this year, but maybe the boys might have another opinion.
No, wouldn't I say, I mean, I agree completely. Ronan Maher with Cathal and Sean Finn each side of him would be the ones to me. I think Colin Fennelly going into the All-Ireland final was with the one Tip would have had to shut down. And because it was such a problematic position for Liam Sheedy, it kind of just all fell right after the Wexford game when Barry Heffernan went in. Ronan assumed the leadership position inside and full back and said, right, I'm going to make a fist of this thing. And Tipperary's season really kicked on from there, especially after what happened in the Gaelic grounds when Tip were really torn apart, and poor old, was caught. James Barry was caught so many times, you know what I mean? And then you the Laois game where Laois ended up giving James Barry the puck out. So then you had, my God, what are we going to do now? We've a right good team, but we need to sort out 3. And Ronan Maher sacrificed a bit of what he could give in the half-back line, tailored his game to suit better for full-back, and Tip go on to win All-Ireland, so they're the 3 for me.
Yeah, his year, Ronan Maher, before we move off him, is an interesting one. Like, as in, he's been on the team a long time, he's been there, but there are some years where hurlers kind of almost step up and become a kind of a bigger part. He almost, like, you know, you would argue he had a bigger impact than Paddy this year, for example, probably for the first time since he's been in there. It's been coming a little bit with him, but I think he just put everything together this year, like, and became the go-to defender for Sheedy.
He did, and he's kind of where the modern defender has gone, because the fullback has to be as good a ball player now. Before you might have gotten away with it, but I think the Wexford game was the ideal one for them to come in at fullback because you knew you were going to have a sweeper.
Yeah.
Right, so you knew your fullback. There was no good. They weren't like Conor McDonald full forward. They weren't going to rake in long high balls. It was going to be a mobile thing. As well as that, then when you do have an extra man at the back, you create an overlap. So therefore, when he gets the ball, he drives at 80, 90, 100 yards accurately into a full forward's hand, which is Tip's danger end of the pitch. So when he gets it, there's a kind of a comfort across Tipperary players and supporters that this is going to go to a blue and gold hand, and that's the way he plays, you know. So he added a tempo, and I know Liam Sheedy be big into that for his goalkeeper and full back line to set the tempo the way we play, take risks. So that allows the fellas further out the pitch to go, geez, if he's taking risks, I better start taking chances. And Ronan gives you a platform to do that.
Any objections there for 3?
No, absolutely not. Ronan Maher would have been my pick at number 3, definitely. You know, I actually thought Ronan Maher was man of the match in the All-Ireland final. You know, I wasn't surprised Noel McGrath got it. He was absolutely outstanding on the day, but for me, I thought Ronan Maher was the standout performer on the day. And you know, he went back in full back against Wexford in the semi-final when things were going against them. They were down to 14 men, and he absolutely came out with ball after ball. So yeah, absolutely the correct decision at number 3.
2 players you mentioned there who aren't nominated for the Hurler of the Year, which we're going to talk about in a while, which I think surprised a lot of people and shows, I suppose, how good some of the performances were this year. The half-back line then, Bugs, I don't know if you've, you know, there are, I suppose this is a little bit more open than the full back line, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. I think particularly at centre back, I know a lot of people's opinions are maybe Pádraig Walsh. Now, I thought Pádraig Walsh had a very, very good year. But to me, the standout centre back this year was Matthew O'Hanlon. Like, and if you look at the games that he played and the role that he was given, the man marking job he was given a man marking job, you know, on opposition's pivotal players. Look at Colin Keane, was one. Niall Burke and Johnny Glynn against Galway, 2 pivotal players for them. TJ twice and Jason Ford. And I thought, you know, his consistency throughout the year was brilliant. For me, and maybe the lads might disagree, but for me, he's the all-star centre back. You know, but you know, Pádraig Walsh still had a good year too. Like, and I wouldn't argue him going in there either. But I suppose, as I said, for me, it would be Matthew.
Yeah, it'd be slightly different. I'd be supporting maybe Rich on this one, saying that Pádraig Walsh, for me, I think the real modern, energetic, driving forward. Like, you look at Kilkenny over the course of the year, some would say they could have nearly overachieved based on what we all expected, or going to get beat by Cork. That was a fluke. Now Limerick will beat him. That was, do you know what I mean? This kind of thing was happening. I think the axis of Pádraig Walsh and TJ Reid were the 2 that any generation of Kilkenny team, and it's a fair statement to make, I think those 2 boys get on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, they are just, they dragged Kilkenny. Yeah. Like, you know, it's like even at an underage match, if you're good centre back and centre forward, you're going a long ways to doing something. And there's the terror to say it's senior inter-county elite hurling, that's the case. But I thought Pádraig Walsh, he put out fires all over the place. Like when Limerick went inside in Gillane for a while, he is just, I think for me, that he's my centre back anyway.
Richie, deciding vote.
Look, what Brendan said about Matthew O'Hanlon is correct. Like, Matthew had a great year, but I suppose going back to Pádraig, we were absolutely delighted to see Pádraig being moved out of number 3 in Kilkenny. Yeah. You know, we've been crying out for it for the last 3 years. So when he eventually got out, we were thrilled, and obviously then we didn't know whether he was going to slot in at 5. Our problematic area has been 6 for the last maybe year or 2. So, you know, Pádraig went in there and made it his own. You know, and I think that's going to be Pádraig's position going forward. You know, himself and TJ are probably the first 2 names on Brian's team sheet as they go out. So. Look, Matthew O'Hanlon, you know, there might be an argument that he'll slot in at maybe 7. You know, that's the other side of it. You know, you'd imagine Brendan Maher is guaranteed number 5 from Tip. Yeah. You know, and then that leaves 7 open. Like, okay, Pádraig Maher come into recognition, but has he had as strong a year as he had in previous years? I'm not so sure. So I don't know. Yeah. Could you maybe slot Matthew O'Hanlon in at 7?
Well, bearing in mind that the rules are just 6 backs go in, and if you're like, we are trying to pick a team here, but is Matthew O'Hanlon the next best defender of the 18 on the list of for the 2019 performances?
I suppose to put my Tip bias to one side, not for me. I think Pádraig Maher, I just think back against Wexford when it was raining in ball in that last 15-20 minutes of that game, like the white helmets at Tipperary were the ones who won the match that day, right? The forwards will always get the credit. It's kind of reflected in the way the Players of the Year has gone. Like, they're all forwards, marquee. Everyone dreams of hitting balls over the bar, kind of thing, you know. But Paddy Maher, like, he won more ball, marched out with it, and with Tip's need was most. And that day, like, for me, Paddy was the one. And he just, when he gets it, Tip people just tend to sit in the edge of the seat or stand up.
They do, yeah.
You know what I mean? And Matthew O'Hanlon did have a fantastic year and all that stuff. But it's just that swashbuckling approach that Paddy has. It's just flair written all over it.
It's an interesting discussion though, Brendan. I put to you as someone who played 5 for a long time and across the half-back line, right? Matthew O'Hanlon had a man-marking job this year where he took forwards out of the game, and Paddy Maher played a lot of time as a spare man in some parts of games rather than and would have done the swashbuckling clearances. What is more valuable to a team? Bearing in mind that it does mean something when 40,000 people get up off their feet and cheer a Paddy Maher clearance as well.
Yeah, I think for me, Paddy has to be in the team. You know, I think
You've now 7 backs. We're playing with a sweeper on this All-Star team.
no, he has to be, and for the very same reasons that Brendan is just after saying. You know, he's value to the Tipperary team and what he brings to the fans and everything. You know, when he gets a ball in his hand, as you said there, everyone just stands up, and he has such an influence on games. And when Tip play bad, or when Paddy plays bad, usually Tip play bad. You know, that's the way. He's such a leader. Will go down as one of the greatest halfbacks of all time, in my opinion. I think he's an incredible player. I couldn't leave him out of this team. You know, to put Matthew in at wing, it wouldn't be right to leave Paddy out. I still myself would have Matthew at 6. Yeah. But no, if the lads have gone for Pádraig Walsh at 6, I'd have to go with Paddy Maher for 7 anyway. Maybe Richie might think differently.
No, look, as I said, it was just something that I put at it. You know, I suppose if we settle with Paddy at 7, you're looking at four defenders from Tipperary. Like, looking at it from the other side, you look at the semi-final, they conceded 3 goals, could have conceded another 2. They got opened up fairly bad in the Munster final against Limerick. So, you know, when you look at it like that, okay, as individuals, definitely, the players we've picked deserve their All-Star, but I suppose collectively as a whole, like what Brendan said is right, when Paddy Maher plays bad, Tip tend to play bad, and that's when Tip nearly lose. So, you know, I suppose Paddy, he's been probably the most consistent hurler in Ireland for the last 12 years.
There's only 20 minutes of play, I think he's missed.
Unbelievable, like.
So I think we're somewhat agreed on that, at least by majority rule anyway. So far we've got Enda Rowland, we've got a full back line of Cathal Barrett, Ronan Maher and Sean Finn, and a half back line of Brendan Maher, Pádraig Walsh and Paddy Maher. So on to midfield then. We've 6 nominations here: Cotton Mannion from Galway, Cian Lynch and William O'Donoghue from Limerick, Noel McGrath from Tipperary, who I'd imagine is going to be a unanimous selection, Diarmuid O'Keefe and Kevin Foley. Richie, I think Noel McGrath is a certainty here. Who goes alongside
certainty, absolutely, 100%. Noel McGrath. For me, there's only Diarmuid O'Keefe is the other standout, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's not going against the other players nominated, but I thought Diarmuid O'Keefe was Wexford's driving force from the middle of the field this year. You know, he was shooting forward, he was probably popping up with 3 or 4 points a game. Very mobile, very fit, very athletic. You know, probably a different style player to Noel. You know, Noel is very laid back, very relaxed, you know, very, very confident on the ball, whereas Diarmuid he's very action-like, you know, he's always on the move, he's always going. So for me, I think they're the 2 standout performers for the middle of the field. I don't know what the 2 guys.
Could be the quickest part of the discussion.
Yeah, no disagreements there whatsoever. I think definitely the 2 standout midfielders of the year. I think Noel McGrath just brought his game to a new level this year. I know he's been exceptional for a number of years now at this stage. I think midfield suited him down to the ground. I know he spent time, you know, particularly against Wexford in the semi-final, in the half-forward line. But really, you know, I thought he was invigorated out midfield, gave great support to his defenders as well. And, you know, man of the match in All-Ireland final, man of the match in All-Ireland semi-final. Think of that pass that he gave to Seamus Callan against Laois. You know, every game of the Munster Championship, okay, he was probably, you know, a little bit subdued against Limerick in the Munster final, but other than that, his performances this year were absolutely exceptional. And Diarmuid O'Keefe, wing forward, wing back for a couple of years. I think he's found his home at midfield. And the way Wexford played and the system they played, with giving him a licence to bomb forward, it suited him down to the ground. So he's the obvious choice there alongside Noel McGrath for me.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Yeah, like Noel's got 119 some this year in the championship, but Tipperary is average scoring at 226 or 7, whatever it was. It all comes from supply ball in, which is, like if you make a move and put your hand like that and a fella puts the ball into it, like you're going to make that move. All 6 are moving, because every time Noel McGrath gets the ball, if you watch, every forward in the pitch is going like the clappers with their hand out like that, going, please get me an all-star, because if you hit it right, I know I'll get it and I'll finish somebody off. Do you know what I mean? He's just, that killer ball is in him. And O'Keefe the same way, I think. I know what Davey was doing this year with Wexford and the way they were trained and all, but they were so fresh. They were so energetic last year in the quarter-final. Looked flat and dead in their feet below in Cork. But this year they were way, way better, and no better man than Dee O'Keefe in the middle of the field. He just powerhouse.
Yeah. Well, the midfield was easy enough. I'm not sure the forwards are going to be. We've got 18 nominations, 4 from Tip, 4 from Kilkenny, 4 from Limerick, 3 from Wexford, 2 from Cork, and Conor Whelan from Galway. The half forward line, Richie, again, like, there's a TJ, I think, is probably going to get an all-star, but Adrian Mullen, John Donnelly, both nominated from Kilkenny. You've got Jason Ford, Bubbles, and also it's a bit weird in the forward line this year, because so many players would have played games at 15 and 10 and everywhere in between as well.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think, looking at it and just chatting to the lads beforehand, it's very hard to pick. Obviously, there's probably 4 guys there that you can pick that are guaranteed to get an all-star. I think TJ is obviously guaranteed at number 11. Seamus Callanan probably guaranteed at 14. And then you're looking at probably Lee Chin and Patrick Horgan.
Yeah.
Those are probably 4 that are guaranteed. And Aaron Gillan as well, in my opinion, is a certainty. I think he should have got one last year. But I certainly think he deserves to get one this year. So I suppose looking at the half forward line, I suppose the easy one to pick is TJ at 11. Then you're looking at 10 and 12. Probably Lee Chin is probably going to slot in at 10. I think he really stepped up to the mark this year for Wexford. He probably came under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of, I suppose, pressure last year when he didn't perform after, I suppose, giving up his job, turning professional, to say the least, and didn't really, show the performances for that. But I think this year he was outstanding. I think he really, his free taking has really improved as well. I think that was another aspect of his game that really let him down at times. But this year, I think he was on the ball. But yeah, I think Lee, deservedly so, wins at 10, TJ at 11. I think the next one then is probably up for debate a little bit.
Well,
the next one is
do we agree on Lee? I suppose is the thing, because I suppose his game this year is, like, as you're saying, stepped up. One of the criticisms of him might have been when Wexford needed him most, he mightn't have been anywhere to be seen. It was almost the opposite this year. It was like he could be quiet, but then in the pivotal points of the game, it was like Lee Chin was everywhere in really the Kilkenny games and the Tipperary game. That seemed to be
I think they left him at 11, which is the key for him. I think when things are going bad, especially Leinster final a couple of years ago, up wing back, do you know what I mean? So the fellas around him also helped in that. He just had to play his own part of the pitch, and if he felt stronger, which he did this year, he went out and did that extra bit more. I think last year he was being moved everywhere, and it was, the monkey wrench kind of thing. It'll fix all kinds of problems for you, and I think he kind of suffered. So this year, I'd say Davey just said to him, look, you're going to be playing here at 11, and you do what you can at 11. Break the line as best you can, hold up the ball, because when you're playing a withdrawn centre back, for all the world, he's nearly marking 2 sometimes, and he's that bull of a player. Like, I thought he was fantastic. Free taking as well. Like, I mean, the frees he struck this year. Like, I mean, that was always the thing for me, that if Wexford were going to win anything, you have to have 90% plus on frees. And it hadn't been MacDonald had been floating around him, watery enough in a lot of ways. The pressure was getting to him.
O'Connor as well.
O'Connor was in there. Well, I'm not so sure, and he stands over it. But Chin this year, when a free had to be hit, even inside his own 65, there under a hug and stand.
The other wing, then, again, there's a lot of choices here.
Do you want to leave that and pick the full
The
forward?
other way.
Well,
I think that's what
it's for.
Yeah, like that's probably the way it's going to go now. You're better off, I think, going if you're picking 6 forwards, you have 2 there, you have 3 more, and then there's a bait at left half forward.
Yeah.
Because you can't pick that position in isolation without looking at the rest of your forward line, really.
It's a very
Well,
fair
I think the
point,
full forward line picks itself.
which is Galan,
Galan,
and Callan.
Yeah.
Callan,
Yeah.
You know, I think there's no one else really going to, I suppose, upset that in a way. You know, and then as I said, there is going to probably be a debate over 12 because
Is Conor McDonald the next choice for me? I know he wouldn't have played 12, but again, if we're just picking 6 forwards, I suppose even just like if you look at the number, you know, he could maybe he's kicking a goal in from 1 yard or whatever, but he's still scoring, you know, goals, and he's involved. He's someone that's
for me
so important for any Wexford win.
For me, and I kind of said it to the lads, and it's not because Kilkenny, but for me, Colin Finlay was a certainty for an All-Star before the All-Ireland final, after the year he had. Now, having a bad All-Ireland, does that mean he loses out on an All-Star? I don't know, but for me, that's where, again, people think it's because of the Kilkenny hat. Certainly not in my eyes, but he was brilliant against Cork in the quarter-final. He was brilliant against Limerick in the semi-final. They probably wouldn't have won either game without him. And probably he's after having one of his best years for Kilkenny in all of his career.
Yeah.
So does a bad final mean that he loses out? I don't know. I'm sure the lads have a different take on it, but that's where I'd be throwing my hat anyway.
There's, I think we should get there's only one tip forward, I suppose, Finn included in
that
this,
was
like, as well, you know.
Yeah, we had that debate on the Sunday game tonight, and it was probably the hottest part we had during the meeting was, does it come down to Colin Fennelly, Bubbles, Adrian Mullen, that kind of spot, like, you know. And I even since I've been racking around in my head, Colin Fennelly did have a fantastic quarter-final, semi-final. In the final, if I'm to put on my Kilkenny hat, I'd say, well, he had no real hope the way Kilkenny played, because the ball came raining in out of the clouds. Shane McCanlon gave 2 years in the wilderness because the ball was coming in over the 747 jets flying over Croke Park, and you're killed. You just have the hope, Rich, you know yourself inside there.
Oh, sure.
I love it when there's high ball coming in and I was playing the goals. It's great because the fullback is behind him and he's sharpening the hurler and he's bang, clearing it out, wing back sweeps it up. But if it comes in anyway right, and anytime the ball came in anyway right, Colin Fennelly caused absolute wreck. And there was a couple of occasions in the Ireland final where one hand pass and he had a goal.
Yeah.
And it just didn't come on the day. So he was still creating opportunities, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And out of every the crumbs that he got inside on Ronan Maher, he did quite well. Any low ball came in, he won it in front of Ronan Maher. It's just that we all see the second half and he was getting killed.
Like once we went
Do you know
down,
what I mean?
the spare man.
And that was it. But I have a nod towards Bubbles. I'll tell you why, right? Because all through the Munster Championship, people were talking about Bubbles below in Cork in against Clare today. He was fantastic, right? He had to dip in the Munster final. It wasn't great against Laois either, right? But for the 15 minutes after half time against Wexford, when the need was most, he got 3 points, one after another. The All-Ireland final got a number of points, moving, bringing other lads into the game, all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at a pure wing forward for that position, I think it's Bubbles the man. But if you're looking at your 6 forwards, then for me it's a toss for time between him and Fennelly. And I think the Clare like couldn't decide that because we're going to be biased.
Bubbles
as hell
had such a
way.
weird year. It was so up and down, and there's matches you're going, Jesus, he's playing it all, and then there's other, as you said, maybe a 10-minute burst where you're like, this is the guy we've been waiting for. Like,
Yeah, I think so far we've picked the team, you know, and players that have played the majority of the year in their positions. You know, I don't know, they Colin play too much of the year out at, you know, wing half forward, but yeah, I look at what Brendan is saying. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of truth to it too. I just think he started the year 100 miles an hour, and he was, you know, in line for Hurler the year after the first couple of games, but then he seemed to just, you know, drift out of games too. You know, you're just saying that you're waiting for him to do stuff in games, waiting for him. He was taken off a couple of times, and he just didn't set the world alight. And I know what Brendan's saying. The first couple of minutes after half time against Wexford, he was really, really good, and he had a good All-Ireland final, especially in the second half. But on a whole, you know, in relation to consistency, and as we said, you know, we're picking the 6 best forwards and not particularly, you know, in positions. Just when it comes to the forwards here, I'd have to go with Colin. I think he was, barred All-Ireland final, I think he had a real, real, real strong year. So he'd be my pick.
Well, he could feel, like, in fairness to Colin Fennelly, could feel more hard done by if he didn't get one, I think, than Bubble's good. Do you know what I mean? If I'm taking off the tip hat for a minute.
I think
I suppose you're looking at, like, we're forgetting about Mullen. Like, I know he's nominated for Young Hurler of the Year. Again, up until the All-Ireland final, he was after having a phenomenal year as well. You know, he was after being he was a go-to guy for Kilkenny, and he's only 19 years of age. You know, there's not too many guys you'd say that about Kilkenny over the years. So, again, to me, he was after having a phenomenal year up until the final, similar to what Colin was after having. So, you know, will he be a shoe-in for Young Hurler of the Year?
I think he will. I think he'll get Young Hurler of the Year, and as a result, then Colin will probably slip into that.
It's amazing. Look at if Colin slips in there, which he probably will. Where we're chatting, like you have one Tipperary forward.
Yeah.
In the
4
way.
Tipperary backs.
And 4 tip backs. And if you spoke in the end of June, you'd say Tipper and fire in the back, they have a disaster, it's a car crash, and their forwards are going to take him out of a hole.
It's
just so well.
One forward last year.
That's true.
One forward, yeah.
One forward.
Galan didn't get it. I couldn't believe it. He didn't get it.
You know,
It just goes to show how good forwards are nowadays.
Yeah.
And this, you know,
And we're talking. Yeah.
I think Conor McDonald is very unlucky as well.
unbelievable.
I think Conor McDonald is really, really unlucky. I thought he had an exceptional year as well. And you could have easily put him in the half-forward position there as well. He was exceptional.
And you'd have to say as well, I don't think Mark Kavanagh off Laois was nominated.
Yeah.
Dunphy as well, very unlucky.
Yeah,
That's
Mark
sent enough
Kavanagh
for
for me is the modern centre forward. And again, we spoke earlier about end of role and distribution on Mark Kavanagh. Saw him, the runs he makes, the free taking, he ticks all the boxes like that and gets on the majority of inter-county teams, like, to be fair to him. So there's that has to be said as well. But I think again, through the whole lot, I think Colin Fennelly will probably end up getting the nod on the numbers.
Okay, so we'll go with we're going with what we think will happen, and I think what we're picking, I think the consensus is somehow come around to Colin Fennelly as the fourth full forward almost in their incredibly attacking All-Star team, which is Enda Rowland in goal. We have a full back line of Cathal Barrett, Sean Finn and Ronan Marr. We have a half back line of Brendan Marr, Paddy Marr and Pádraig Walsh. Midfield, which kind of picked itself of Dee O'Keefe and Noel McGrath. Half forward line then of Lee Chin, TJ Reid and Colin Fennelly, and a full forward line of Aaron Gillan, Seamus Callanan and Patrick Horgan. We talked a little bit about Horgan, but the PwC GPA Hurler and Young Hurler of the Year awards, we've got the 3 nominations for Hurler of the Year is Patrick Horgan, Seamus Callanan and TJ Reid. I think there's a lot of people in Tip, Brendan, who'll say if Shamey doesn't win it this year, we may forget about it altogether. 2016, there was that just general sense. I know we in here even gave him an award where we got the captain and the manager of each team in the kind of Ballon d'Or sort of way to vote, and he won it by a mile. And when he didn't win it then in the All-Stars, you were like, you know, and there's almost a fear that that's going to happen again here.
Yeah, and you have to be careful too, because Austin Gleeson, you're not disrespectful to Austin either and say that the vote was split. I think one side of Tip will say that, well, at least Shamey should get it this time because nobody else is going to vote against him. Because I think Noel McGrath has been what I've seen around Tip in the last since being down. Why isn't Noel McGrath in there? Now, with the great respect to Patrick Horgan, who's the one would probably lose out, but I think the kind of year that Noel McGrath had, it just trumps what Patrick Horgan did. That's, in my own view, is the way it's at. Now, having that argument parked up that Noel McGrath, I think, has been very hard done by in not getting in there, it helps Shamey, because it doesn't split that vote. So now it's Shamey, 1 Tip, 1 Cork, 1 Kilkenny, and Shamey's had such a year, a goal a game. So taking his performance in isolation throughout the year, you just knew going into that Ireland final he was going to get a goal. Like, how many generations of players would be able to say that about, maybe outside of Henry or this assassin here on the other side of the chair? But it's to do it so consistently, and teams are so well prepared now, and so much video work done, so much strategic thinking done. You'd say at some stage you come up with a way of saying, geez, you can't let him score a goal today, but he just gets one. And that's the way his year had gone, and he was the go-to man in Tip. Since Tip changed the style of play under Liam, I think Liam made him captain. And he had adversity through the start of the year because he was taking off the frees. He was hitting frees wide all over the place because he kind of knew Jason Ford was looking over his shoulder and there was extra pressure on him. He missed him, and he was man enough to say, I'm not taking them anymore, but there's other things I'll work on to get my scores. And I think that transition for me throughout the year showed great maturity. And captains in Tip haven't always done the trick because it's a fair weight on your shoulder to captain your county, but he carried that with ease this year. And Hurler of the year for me all day long.
Totally agree with Brendan. Like I remember watching a league game at the start of the year. It was in Thurles. I think it was against Clare in the league.
Tracking back David.
His work rate that day, and that was February, was it? I remember looking at it that day, and I said, Callan is, I believe he'd something to prove as well. Obviously, being captain was a huge thing. I think taking him off the freeze was massive as well. Took the pressure completely off him.
Yeah.
He could go out and concentrate on just working hard for the team. Getting his scores when they popped up, goal getter every day of the week. He's nearly guaranteed to get you 1 goal per game. So yeah, look, I suppose everyone before the final was saying TJ was nearly guaranteed to get it. TJ had a phenomenal year, and without, I suppose, hitting the scoring heights that he's hit in previous years, you have to mention TJ's work rate as well, and everything that he does off the ball, and his work rate that he does for the Kilkenny forwards. I think, his scoring average from play was very low, but when you look at the frees he was scoring, he was probably winning 70-80% of those frees himself. So from that front, TJ had a phenomenal year as well. But look, it has to be. It's probably written in the stars at this stage. Callan, he's given so much to Tipperary hurling. I think he's a shoe-in for Hurler of the year himself.
Yeah, I think that game the Tip played against Clare in the league, the first game was a huge game for Liam and the Tipperary players. They were after getting hockey by Clare 2 weeks before that in the Munster League final, and it was a real statement of intent, I think, and Shamey's performance that day and his work rate was something we hadn't probably seen in last year's championship. And Shamey didn't set the league, he didn't set the world alight, throughout the league either. But when it came to the championship, he was just a different animal altogether, I thought. He was exceptional, and to score a goal in every day is just, in every game, is just absolutely phenomenal. But I know what the boys are saying about, TJ Reid and Patrick Horgan. To me, Noel McGrath should be ahead of both of them, being honest. And I think probably TJ should be third. Patrick Horgan had an exceptional year, exceptional talents, an unbelievable hurler for Cork.
Yeah.
But I just think what Noel did this year was something really, really special. And to me, he's Hurler of the Year. He's obviously not going to get it. Shamey's going to get it obviously now. But I just think Noel McGrath had a phenomenal year, and it's a disgrace really that he's overlooked for the gong.
He will win Hurler of the Year, but I go along with Brendan as well. I think Noel McGrath is a lot of people's Hurler of the Year. And unfortunately he hasn't been nominated.
We're almost out of time, but quickly on the PwC GPA Young Hurler of the Year. We talked about Adrian Mullen already. I think he's probably going to get the vote. Kyle Hayes and Rory O'Connor are the other two nominees. Kyle Hayes, if you'd asked halfway through the Munster Championship, probably you'd have been saying he's going to get an All-Star, he's going to be Young Hurler of the Year. He was the one everybody was talking about, and kind of, I suppose, didn't finish the season in that kind of fashion. And Rory O'Connor was almost the opposite. He almost came into the year, and by the time it finished, he was firing on all cylinders for Wexford.
Yeah, but sure, look, I don't think Kyle Hayes hit the heights that he hit last year. Number one. Rory O'Connor, on the other hand, was coming very, very strong towards the Leinster final, All-Ireland semi-final. So both players could probably, have a shout. For me, I know we spoke about it already, Adrian Mullen. I think he was having a fantastic year up until the All-Ireland final. Yeah. Obviously, with the whole illness in the build-up to it, affected his build-up and his preparation for it. But, for me, Adrian Mullen could have slotted in on the All-Star team, but I think he'll definitely get the Young Player of the Year.
You touched on it earlier about the idea of him being a go-to man for Kilkenny at 19. So if you look at someone like yourself coming through, or TJ, the player, like, no matter how good you were, how vaunted you were, you kind of played a secondary role up until a certain point in your early to mid-20s, and then you became a kind of a focal point. Yeah. It was the same with Henry, it was the same with you, it was the same with TJ. This guy seems to be like straight in there, and I know there probably isn't that depth of talent and All-Ireland winners that's been there in Kilkenny in history, but it is a kind of a testament to him that he's almost been trusted as the second forward already. Look,
absolutely, and I suppose you touched on it, Mike, as well. When he was taken off before half-time against Galway, a lot of other players wouldn't have been seen for the rest of the year under Brian's management. So, for him to show the faith that he had in Adrian to put him in, again, he was probably one of the first names on the team sheet. And for me, it's a sign what's to come for this guy. I think in the future, I think he's only going to get better as well. I think we've only seen the kind of the tip of the iceberg this year with how good he can be, especially with good hurlers around him. You know, he proved that with Ballyhale over the course of the year as well. So, you know, definitely for me, he has to be Young Hurler of the Year. Probably a little bit unlucky again not to be on the actual All-Star team as well.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, definitely. It's Adrian Mullen for me. Yeah, I'd kind of followed him the last couple of years, you know, through schools hurling, and I'd seen him a couple of times playing with St. Kieran's, and he was obviously, you know, the standout player for them in many games. I didn't think he'd make the step up as quick, but then when I seen him at Paddy's Day in the All-Ireland Club Final, I kind of had a fear that, you know what, he could be fast-tracked here, you know, and, you know, in fairness, Brian did it, and, you know, he had a fantastic year. You know, obviously he was with illness for the All-Ireland Final and the game against Galway, but other than that, he was exceptional, so he's a worthy winner of the Young Hurler of the Year for me, anyway.
Yeah, a bit of agree with the lads completely there. Like Kyle Hayes was fine when others around him were playing well. I think when Hegarty and were struggling in the All Ireland semi-final, Tom Morrissey, I think he let it happen rather than try to change it. And I think when Kylie sits down with him, I think at the end of this year and says, right, we were in a bit of a storm here. I need my 11 to do what Joe Canning does, and you're now in that space, or like what Henry would have done. That's where it needs to go, you know. But certainly Mullen came in with a Kilkenny team again that all year were saying, oh, today's the day now, they'll be better. But he just kept coming up, he kept going to the ball, he kept popping up, working back, and scoring was as well. He was fantastic, I thought, yeah. And first to Rory O'Connor in the Leinster final as well, he's exceptionally good. We talk about a great year, Lee Chin, and I know we'll get the All-Star and all, but Rory O'Connor was really, really good as well, you know, so he definitely played his part with MacDonald. But overall, I think Adrian Mullen has to be the man.
Unanimous vote to finish it, and a unanimous vote for Hurler of the Year as well, so that's good after not too much disagreement throughout the team, one or two little bits. We'll find out on November 1st at the PwC All-Star Awards if your predictions and your teams actually do come true, but for now, thanks very much for being a brilliant panel. Brendan Cummins, Brendan Bugler and Richie Power, thanks a million.
Cheers, Mike. Thanks.
You can download the PwC All-Stars app and pick your own All-Star football and hurling teams. You can also vote for the PwC GEA GPA Footballer, Young Footballer, Hurler and Young Hurler of the Year award. And there's lots more on there as well that's worth your time, including All-Stars news, archives and a weekly quiz that's been keeping us all occupied in the office all summer.